This is problem 14 from Chapter 2 of the CFA Institute textbook, Corporate Finance, A Practical Approach, 2nd edition. And in this problem, we're given some cash flows that are non-normal cash flows or non-standard cash flows. Standard or normal cash flows have a negative number followed by either zero or positives. Anytime you have a sign reversal out into the numbers here, you have the potential to have another IRR. And if we went to year 4 and it's a 10 and year 5 is -1, that's another sign reversal. So every time that happens, there's a potential that you will get yet another IRR. Now, the good news is it almost never happens, and you got to really work at it to find multiple IRRs. But when you do have non-normal cash flows, it happens. All right, so there's a potential for 2. And one thing I can tell for sure is that 0 is going to be one of the answers here. At a 0 discount rate, you have $100 going out and $100 going in. NPV would be 0. So at 0%, the net present value of this project is 0. And anytime anytime you have a crossover of the horizontal axis, that means you have another IRR. Let's use the IRR profile method, and that way we can look for it. If I do the required rate of return, we'll start with 0 and then go to 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. And an Npv profile simply takes the net present value of these cash flows at these various discount rates. All right, so Npv at that rate and the present value of the cash flows in years 1, 2, and 3 net of the cash flows at time 0. So it's 0 at time 0, or at 0 required rate of return. But we can also see a sign change out here. And if I graph this, if you're looking at the Npv profile, an XY graph, anytime this line crosses the horizontal, you have an internal rate of return. The definition of the internal rate of return is the interest rate that causes the present value of the cash flows in the future to be equal to the initial outlay. So you have 2 here, one occurring at time 0 and one occurring out here somewhere near 60%. Since I know I have one out around 60, I can actually go calculate what it is. So the IRR at 0%, when you compute the IRR function, you can see here it says IRR, the function is equals IRR, the values, and that's cover up the cash flows from period 0 through period 1. And then there's always a second guess. Now Excel defaults to 10% as its guess, but if you put, say, 4% in here, then it's going to calculate the closest IRR to 4%, and the closest IRR is 0. If the IRR, the second IRR, and you know it's somewhere around 60%, equals IRR, cover up the same cash flows, comma 0.6, and it'll give you the actual exact because it'll start at 60 and look for the one closest to there. So the answer is there are 2 for this set of cash flows at 0 and again at 61.8, or roughly 62%. All right. You could also check to see if there's one around 30%. If there was one at 32%, then if you did equals IRR, cover up the cash flows, comma 30% or 0.3, then if there was one at 32%, it'd pick the one, it's going to pick the IRR closest. The thing is, from 30%, the closest one to it is the same one, the 61.8. So choice B is not correct, and choice A is not correct because from looking at the profile, we could tell there's at least 2.